everyone. We are coming at you live. This is our Proppy Podcast. My name is Kenyon Martin, the Global Alliance Catalyst. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I can see we still have a few people coming in. And I just want to remind all of you, whether you're a first time or you're coming in as a regular, please make sure to keep your videos muted, your videos off, because this is going to be a live but one-on-one chat with a very, very special guest. And of course, we're going to be posting this later on our YouTube and all of our social media channels. So if you haven't already, please go out, like, subscribe, follow our social media, support Proppy and all of the creative content that we're creating. And of course, get involved. If you yourself want to get involved with the podcast, or you have an idea, reach out to us, and we're going to continue to bring you the story behind each and every one of our Proppians and be bringing in experts from all around the globe to talk about property and everything that's happening in the world right now, particularly with Proppy and real estate and startups, big data, everything that's really exciting. So thank you all for being here. I have a really, really special guest because for those of you, most of you are probably pretty familiar with Proppy. Proppy is about property. It's about real estate. It's about something that we all affects all of our lives, whether we have mortgages, we're renting, it doesn't matter. And so it's really, really exciting to finally get to talk to somebody who lives and breathes and is passionate about real estate. And that is why I'm going to bring you our own Proppy Property Division Advisor, Mr. Chen Aik. He is from Malaysia, and he's going to be talking with us a little bit about in depth about the real estate market in Malaysia, a little bit what's going on, pre and post pandemic, and how it ties in, and get up the perspective of a real estate expert about what Proppy can bring to not only real estate professionals, but users and everybody in between. So thank you all for being here. And, before we even go much further, I want to pass over the baton because Mr. Chen and Aik, we haven't got a chance to know each other very well, but we just started the conversation, and he has so much good knowledge, so much informative information. I've always been very passionate about the real estate markets and investing as well. So I think we could talk for hours and hours, but we only have enough time to kind of get to know the man behind and hear from him personally. And so with that, I want to welcome you. Please, let us know who you are, where you come from. Give us a little bit of story behind, who you are.
Thank you, Kenyon. Good evening, everybody. I would like to thank the Proppy for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself at this platform, which I hardly joined. To be very honest, the 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock session, usually I already lying on bed. I wake up early in the morning. Like this morning, I woke up at 3:30 and until now. But I make it special for today. Since Kenyon has requested me to stay on to share some of my experience and introduce myself with everybody. Let me start with my very humble background. I'm actually Johorian. I born in Muar school, primary school. I spent my primary school, my childhood time, and secondary school in Muar. And a very special time when I spent in my secondary school, which I hang up with a group of people through curriculum activities like Scout, Interact Club, and I happened to actually hang around with a few people, which they are now the founders and co-founders of Proppy. Mr. Wilson Lee, our CC, and Yvonne Ngao, Mr. Will Fang, this Thompson. They are all my senior. Actually, in fact, they are all my senior in the school, and we hang up together. We tackle girls together. Awesome. We are actually from boys' school. You can't blame us. Boys' school, and when we have activities related to these girls' schools, which is the most enthusiastic and most active activities we are participating. We spend good time together in secondary school, and CC is always my one of my mentor during school time. And Ivan Ngao is always so talented in music, in languages. And I also been influenced by CC. I pursue after the secondary school. I pursue my college. I take up an accounting course like him, professional accounting course, and at the same time I work half part time in a property consultant firm, Henry Butcher. So I started as accounting account clerk, but after 1 week, just a very strange this experience whereby my boss, he said, "Hey, our valuation and research department require manpower. I do not need any new guys in the accounts department. I'm supposed to gain experience in the account department," and he transferred me to the valuation department. So it's from there, I actually starting to expose myself to properties via from the angle of valuation. And that actually give me a very in-depth experience and in properties, and that is actually make me so excited about property. And until the day that I decided I do not want to be a professional accountants anymore. I think that from there I actually get so excited about properties, and I foresee myself to a long journey in properties. And that actually backtrack a little bit to my childhood, whereby my childhood friend actually is my cousin brother. He is actually ambition to be an architect because his father is an architect. And two of us always chit chat, and when we were young, about 6-7 years old, we were thinking about becoming an architect. But unfortunately, I actually achieved the art stream, and I couldn't, unable to pursue architecture. So I think, hey, why don't I try property line? And that is also related to architect. So from there, valuation, and I actually during my younger day, before 30 years old, I actually from valuation after 2 years I do this research. Then after 1 year, I changed to this property property services, maintenance, building maintenance, management of rented properties. Thereafter, after 2 years, I joined the developers. I start from sales, selling properties. I also actually volunteer myself to involve in to take up the responsibility to do the sales administration process. After sales, then we do sales administration for the developers to claim money from the purchaser or draw down from the bank loan. So these are the process actually I went through under the developer. And of course, thereafter, I think that, hey, it is time when I gain enough knowledge. I say, hey, why don't I do a little bit of changes? I moved myself into another developers, and I actually take up a higher responsibility as a manager. I started a career as a manager in sales and marketing. So we actually gone through a lot of, I have a very good team who are very supportive. We actually gone through a lot of property challenges, selling properties. And when I get enough experience in sales marketing, so my character will come again. So I volunteer myself to involve in the planning, project planning, and I starting to fall in love in project planning, and which eventually my interest in project planning and project management lasts until today. After I worked for as a senior management in the renowned developers for enough experience. I left the developer life employment in year end 2019. So I started my career as a self-employed consultant to developers January 2020. And I'm supposed to launch my first project in May 2020. And Malaysia, we have a lockdown, and MCO started 18th of March. And yeah, actually, I picked the right timing. To me, it's a perfect timing. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic global, my project has been suspended. Not because I cannot do it is because the banker told me, said, don't. This is your first project. I can't lend you. You wait for a while. So until today, my project is actually still ongoing, but I'm unable to sell. Of course, when I started to do this, I'm not only doing this design build construction. I also actually involve myself into an investment consultant. I always wanted to bring in investor to Johor, invest in Johor to create job opportunity, eventually increase the population in Johor Bahru. So, and when we have increased population in Johor Bahru, then we increase the demand for housing.
Absolutely.
So just before we started this, I actually being shared with Kenyon that a lot of people was asking me how is demand and supply situation in Malaysia. I was sharing with Kenyon saying that the supply in Malaysia property, it is still insufficient. There is still gap of about 2.3 million unserved market in Malaysia. The biggest problem we have, it is a mismatch of supply and demand, whereby the demand of the buyer and the supply, it doesn't match. That is why we have a lot of unsold property and overhang.
Well, Chen, there's a lot to absorb there. And first, I just got to say, you know, the name of this podcast is Passion for Property, and it is perfect because your passion is contagious. It's so obvious because, you know, just hearing a little bit about your story and how you came into property is inspiring, and how you volunteer your time to, you know, kind of work in a new division, learn a new aspect of property, and that you have worked your way up into the position that you're at, to have your own projects, to be consulting on an investment level. You know, for those of you who might not understand property, you know, I've done a little bit of, you know, real estate research in the past. I worked on a real estate team back in America, and, you know, I'm humbled by your experience. I'm humbled by your passion. And, you know, I think that you are one of the foremost, you know, experts in this. And so I know, you know, I'm sure Proppy is very happy to have you. It makes absolute sense that you go way back with CC, that you go way back with our core team, and it's a pleasure to have you. But, you know, getting back to your point, you know, the mismatch and the overhang in the real estate there in Malaysia, it's really interesting. I didn't know that. I've seen incredible boom happening here in the Philippines, you know, pre-pandemic, and I've been really curious, you know, from your perspective there, you know, as you're trying to bring an investment into Malaysia, I mean, what does that look like? Are you trying to put together your own projects, you know, for massive development projects, or what is your passion in terms of where you're trying to bring in the investments in your projects?
Okay, what I'm doing right now, the project I'm starting, it is actually a very small project. We are building 64 units of houses. It is very small, but to me, it is actually the biggest investment in my life, whereby actually I told CC about it. I sold everything I have just to do this project, and I cannot fail. Yeah, in fact, yeah, over the 20 years of cumulative of wealth, I actually sold every single thing I have just to make sure this project has sufficient fund to carry on. But of course, along the line, I always believe that I have a lot of contact. I know people. I mix with people, with investor, big corporation. Now, actually, I'm working on a project to bring in a cow farming, a huge cow farming to Johor Bahru. They are looking at 20,000 acres of land to do cow farming. So I hope this could happen. At the same time, I'm also working with one of the Taiwanese investor group. They may actually bring in Taiwanese, connect me to Taiwanese industrialized manufacturer. I'm trying to attract them to Johor Bahru, set up factories to penetrate into the market opportunity in the Southeast Asia under the Asian cooperation. So I'm working on it. It is actually not a rewarding job, but I do it with passion. I love the job. So when CC, at the same time, when CC last year, CC contact me, said, hey, Chen Aik, you know I'm back to Malaysia. I said, I don't know. I always think that you're in China. So, it's like he never want to come back to Malaysia. So he was saying that, hey, I'm in Malaysia. I team up with Ivan, Will Fang. We are setting up something related to properties. So when he talked to me, first talked to me about property, I'm actually very skeptical. To be very honest, I asked him, do you have AI technology and do you believe in big data? You know how he answered me? He said, Chen Aik, we have more than what you want. We have a lot of technology that you can apply. Then I said, if this is the case, I am interested. I always believe that from what I'm actually working throughout my working experience as a developer, as a sales profession, we always, most of the time, I would say, shame to say, we are always working in the dark. Working in the dark in the sense that when the only available data in the market is actually with the government. And for us to get the data from government, example from this past transaction, what do we get? Past transaction of properties. For us to analyze further, we need to fill in a form, what type of transaction we need, what area, which area you need, from when to when, what category. And you know what? We have to wait for 3 days.
It takes 3 days to get the data that you need to analyze?
Correct. It takes us 3 days.
This needs to be updated and quick. This is old-fashioned. Yes. That's crazy to me. In today's world, when everything is instant, you got 5G. So
that's right. Yeah. That's right. In Malaysia, we still have this gap whereby a lot of developers, especially I'm a person who believes in data, big data, for us to make a decision, and we don't have the data. So how do we get the data? Either we buy, or we get our internal data, or we guess. We guess.
And that's a risky game when you're talking big money. I mean, development is huge industry. You don't want to guess when you got $1 billion on the line, right? I mean, you need to probably know those numbers, right?
Yes, you're right. I would like to share with everyone later how do I devise the how dependence on me on data to make decision. And as at today, I'm still half blind. Okay, do you mind I share with you the data I always use?
Think everybody is going to be really into this. This is so interesting because how you analyze data, coming from a developer straight from the horse's mouth, guys. This is going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm going to give you the screen and take us through it.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, just a very quick one. This is a NAPIC report. This is the only report as a developer we can get from government. It shows, this is one of the particular section. I actually did it for my client. Now I'm working on one project about 500 acres. We are focusing on single-story terrace house. So this report, it shows that the existing stock of single-story terrace house stood at 106,000 units. And the planned supply means already approved but not built is 976 units. So there is no newly completion unit, there is no new starts, there is no new planned supply. New planned supply means developer just submit plan for approval. So what does the data tell us? The data tell us in the region there is a lack of supply of single-story terrace house. Yes, but what the data doesn't tell us, the data doesn't tell us how big is the demand. It didn't tell
everything,
us.
Right? When if you have all the supply and no demand, then what's the point?
You're right. You're right. So if apps or a data or an information can tell us, okay, there's a lack of supply, and there is a numbers of demand. Isn't it better for us as a developer? We plan when we decide what type of property we can build, how many units to fulfill the market demand. So this is one of the very particular one which we are working in a half blind situation. Okay, I would like to share with you. Usually when I analyze market, like now I analyze market, I can see this is actually report from NAPIC. Government share with us. it's actually free information we can download. Everyone can download, which we appreciate it. This didn't happen 10 years ago. This happened 2 years ago. So it's one step further, but it's far insufficient. Okay, let me show you why it is far insufficient. In this market market active 2020, it shows that 295,000 of property transaction, and among of out of the 295,000, residential formed about 65%, majority of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the value is 119 billion values. But it didn't tell us whether is it an up or is it a down compared to 2019. It doesn't tell us. Okay. This table is show us it is actually a downtrend. In the past 5 years, we have 2019 pre-COVID and 2020 is COVID period. The property transaction is dropped by 10%. In terms of value, it dropped by about 16%. So it tells us. It tells us, huh? But it didn't tell us which state dropped the most. And it didn't tell us which district is most affected one.
And from a real estate investment or developer standpoint, that's the most important information.
That's right.
You need to know where, what area, you need to have very specific data before you make large investments. Yeah.
This is nationwide, but because Malaysia, we are not a single market. We are multiple market. Yeah. So that is why we need to analyze very, very deep, very, very detailed. Okay, here it breaks down further. It breaks down further. If you can see the price range, this one information are useful. As I say, we are half blind, but at least we can see something. On the left, transaction by price range to 2019 and 2020, below 300,000 form the majority, may still form the majority. Every section it drops. Above 1 million is form the minority. So it tells us the whole trend. So as I said, when I actually planning for single-story terrace house, I know that I have the biggest market because the mean income of Malaysia population, it is 4,500 ringgit per month, and which make their property price affordable to them is in the range of 200 to 250,000. In the range of 200 to 250,000, they can only get single-story terrace house. So this is a simple logic we actually develop further. And in terms of transaction by state, we can see that to my surprise, the biggest transaction is Selangor. It's formed about 18.7%, but huge drop compared to 2019.
Yeah.
Every state dropped, but Perak increased. Perak state. Can you see it? Perak state.
That's interesting. So that's going against the grain of the rest of the country.
Perak state overtake Johor as the second highest transaction of property in the whole Malaysia. And I have an answer for you. Perak state, Selangor property price has gone much higher. And for those who work at the border of the Selangor or not too far from Perak, they will buy a property in Perak with half of the price and they travel. With the pandemic, it allows them to work from home or they work semi or from home. So the take-up rate in Perak increased.
Interesting.
Okay, this is something I always very much depend on. This is what I said. I keep track on the property transaction and the property index, property price index from 1990. This is my own record. Okay, if you look at the whole past 30 years, Malaysia property market transaction record, we see that we have a huge impact after 1997 global economic crisis. It dropped by 32% in terms of transaction. In terms of value, dropped by 47%.
Wow, 47.
Yeah, that crisis is the biggest hit of Malaysia property history. And Malaysia property price hit the peak in year 2011, which recorded the highest transaction value.
Wow.
430 million, 430 billion of transaction. And in this is 430 million transaction in a year. In 2014, we hit the highest in terms of value recorded, 163 billion transaction. And that year marked the highest property price at the peak. Everywhere you go, especially in Johor Bahru market, KL market, property price is so expensive. But we never seen that level until today. If you see from 2011, 2014, our property price is on the declining trend.
Why? I mean, as a real estate expert, I mean, what would your guess be as to why that is? You'd think that it would be, I mean, beside the pandemic of 2020, I mean, you'd think that you'd see a steady rise in price, but it's not that way.
If we compare the crisis and pandemic is only drop in transaction by 10%, whereas value is 16% only, compared to 32% and 47% during crisis. And what I see in this trend, my interpretation is Malaysia property is going into a very serious mismatch situation. There are so many properties built, but our buyer are unable to afford to buy. There are many reasons. I can't be pinpoint everything, but the serious mismatch is happening.
I've seen a similar trend happening here in the Philippines. The development is just out of the roof. You see sky-high condos going up every day. And I was just read an article 2 days ago that Manila was rated one of the most expensive cities to live in Southeast Asia. And there's all this property happening. And yet I don't see how the median income for an average Filipino family can't even get close to affording these condos that they're building. So I think it's, a lot of foreign investment, but that bubble, I think we're kind of in a bubble here as well that could burst in a negative way before too long.
I think in Malaysia, certain area we are experiencing the same thing, but our situation is not as bad as Philippines. If you look at our affordable housing policy throughout the whole Malaysia, the government still forcing the developer to build affordable housing like 42,000 ringgit per house, which is $10,000 per unit.
Wow.
Yes, we
don't have those kind of programs here that I know.
Yeah, we still have. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
So actually what the government was doing is they sacrificed the medium higher income people who has to pay higher property price in order to subsidize the lower income. But the setback is a $10,000 houses. Can you imagine how shitty would that be?
I suppose for some people it can be an improvement, and it's better to have a house than nothing. I mean, we need affordable housing solutions in America. The homeless situation is out of control, but yeah, I can't imagine for $10,000 you're going to get a very nice place. So,
but government now they have changed their mindset. They are thinking that the shitty house and it may actually give a bad impact to their younger children. So government is changing the mindset. They are building medium affordable housing, but they are actually on the rent to own scheme.
Oh, that's good. I've seen that trend happening here more because there's an emerging middle class here, and I think there's more expendable money, and I've seen a lot of not shitty houses, but medium style communities coming up where it's like a rent to own program. I think those are progressive developments. I'm glad to see that happening.
From this housing price index, it shows that the property price index since 2012 is actually on the declining stage all the way. Wow. The property price is not growing at all. So CC, to this extent, when I prepare this chart, I actually can echo CC's opinion. CC is saying that we invest in business or whatever investment instrument, he will never invest in properties.
I look at this as it might be a good buying opportunity, but then again,
for those who are in need, yes. for those who are in it. In fact,
Yeah.
some of my friends actually they take the opportunity to buy nice property at half of the price of 40% discount price.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. It's interesting because it seems to be the opposites happening in a lot of places around, Southeast Asia. It seems like prices are getting, I've noticed Cambodia, Thailand, Philippines, prices just keep going up and up and up. A lot of foreign money coming in.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Now, this is actually the trend of the overhang property, whereby Johor is the number one at the bottom, is where I am, have recorded the highest overhang properties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the trend of overhang property is slightly improved since last year to this year because of the home ownership campaign, the incentive government push out to encourage house buying, so slightly improved. But for those overhang and mismatch due to mismatch of pricing, sizes, all this, it is still there.
Yeah.
It is still stuck there. Okay. And even though you will be surprised, I also surprised that the overhang property, including property below 300,000. So a lot of developers will actually jump into conclusion saying that as long as I sell cheap enough, there is no reason it will be overhang. No. So even though at 300,000, below 300,000 property also can overhang. All these are as a result of what? They are not informed. Developers are working in the dark.
That is really shocking to hear because developers have the money, they have the expertise, they have people like you who are consultants, and yet they still don't have the right data. They still don't have the right information to make the most wise conclusions, and that's surprising. I think that's.
Yeah, I would like to share with you one experience. One of my superior. I'm a very factual person. I always believe in data, believe in numbers. I actually use my resources. I churned out some numbers to derive a potential decision-making element for him to make decision. And he tell me otherwise. He said, no, I don't agree. Chen Aik, your data may be wrong. He don't agree. He said he want the other way around. Okay. So after that, I actually work harder. I churn out more numbers, and the result is still the same. You know what he said? He said he already reported to the big boss. This is what his opinion. He said you modify your report to match his recommendation. And this is what happened.
Wow. So, there's a lot of information there. For those who are local in Malaysia, I imagine that's really interesting, whether you're a property owner looking to buy. I mean, obviously having our property professional part of Proppy is invaluable. And so I suppose the next question would be, considering all that data and the downward trend that we're looking at, COVID is obviously, part of that. It took a pretty strong dip, but do you see that things might recover post-COVID now? I mean, when the world gets back on track, do you see it kind of turning around, or what would be your projection as an analyst?
I see Malaysia property is a dynamic, still remain as a dynamic market, whereby the housing demand of 2.3 million remain unserved. It's only that the developers need to be informed. The buyer need to be informed buyers, and that property will come in. It is in the right time for us to offer them. This is to create an informed society for every stakeholder to make decision. I will see post pandemic, there are few things we need to be very, very concerned, very, very important to us. Number one, sales of property internationally via our Malaysia MM2H Malaysia My Second Home program, it has been suspended because of the pandemic, the closed border. So this will affect all those property being designed or developed, designated for the foreigner. Especially in Johor, we have Forest City, we have this Martini scheme, which is their sales is practically zero.
Wow.
Practically zero.
Wow.
For KL project, high-end project, there are still actually a lot of local well-doing local who can actually take up here and there. But in Johor, it's very, very serious. And we also see that, I also see that the home ownership campaign to be ended the 30th of June, it is actually a catalyst for people to encourage people to buy properties. But I hope government can extend. But that, again, is also jeopardized or affected by the approval rate of the bank loan. Since the pandemic until today, bank has been very, very cautious in terms of approving loan. They are pessimistic about certain industry. For those who are working in certain industry, say airline industry, F&B industry, even the property industry, they are also quite pessimistic about that. So for those who are working in certain industry, it's very difficult to get loan. So but of course, this one is actually we need bank or government, Bank Negara, the national financial institution to push the bank to release more loan. And also affordable housing, we need to build more affordable housing which meet the demand of the certain area. Every specific area, they have different income group, their income is different, their demand is different. That is why the developer has to analyze more based on data, based on facts, based on survey. Proper survey has to be done. And in terms of this clearance of the overhang properties, I think it will take a long while, especially for those overhang are designated for the foreigners. They are already mismatched, seriously mismatched in terms of size, in terms of layout, in terms of pricing, in terms of costing, seriously mismatched. It will take a very, very long while to clear. But I remain positive if every stakeholder in the industry, the agents, the customers, the house owner, the developers are using our system. And they which we promote the informed society, they will create, they will actually be able to be analyze before they make decision. I think this will solve the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, as you said, I believe in numbers. Numbers don't lie. And when Proppy gets to a critical point, when, like you said, you have everyone using it, that data is going to be there. And you're not going to have to wait 3 days to get it from the government. It's going to be analyzed. It's going to be in your fingertips. And whether you're a developer or a user or whatever, you're going to have all those resources available to you instantaneously, via artificial intelligence. So that's the trend of the world we live in, right? It is data, it is analytics. And that's what's one of the most exciting things about Proppy. And it's what's really interesting to hear this coming from because you have such a good and strong history in real estate, and not only just buying and selling or even just being a salesman. I mean, you understand the analytics and the data and the research, the investment, the money, the way it all flows. And so, your expertise is fascinating. And you kind of blew my mind a little bit on this conversation because, in America, I have a couple of friends who are real estate investors. And I can tell you that during 2020, real estate has been booming. Now, similarly, I don't have the data that I can tell you because it's a big country. There are certain states that are suffering. I just read an article, one state is paying people to move there because they're desperate, right? And then whereas other places, every home that goes on the market is getting, selling for $100,000 more than asking. And there's a bidding war because there's not enough property, and because there's a huge influx of people who are moving out of these expensive states into the cheaper ones, and they have their own reasons. But it's at the end of the day, property is pandemic proof, and the issues that Malaysia is having is not necessarily because of 2020, but it's definitely taken a hit, and that's interesting to know. But I think what's the takeaway from all of that is the segment where you said is Proppy can be that strategic center point to bring all that data together and to be an invaluable resource to people like you and everybody in between. And so that kind of leads me into the discussion of, you talked a little bit about kind of growing up with some of our founders and how, of course, Wilson has been a mentor for you, going all the way back from the beginning, which is so great to hear because that's just who he is, right? He can't help but be a mentor and share his wisdom and knowledge with everybody, and it's brilliant. But so talk a little bit more about that, because that's really interesting hearing from you about how the value of Proppy, in your opinion, from somebody like you, as an analyst, as a developer, who are really like the force behind real estate markets, but also, from a basic user standpoint, and how do you see Proppy playing an important role in kind of changing the game in terms of this whole thing?
I am very inspired to see and to experience when the ecosystem of Proppy the entire ecosystem of Proppy is being set up, is completed. I wanted to see the Proppy actually offer or create a safe business environment for everyone. Safe. How do we say safe? The buyer, the seller, the agents are being verified, are being recognized, are being rated before actually they can offer their services. All the user, among all of us, we have basic trust that everyone I deal with in Proppy is being verified, being rated. I know the level they have. This is actually through our rating system. Our customer have the channel to rate certain service provider. I also inspired that we can be a complete informed environment to all stakeholders. Informed environment, house owner, they know the price of their assets, even though they have no intention to sell. Agents, they know that when I have a customer looking for certain property in this area, I know that this area, certain people is going to sell. So they as an agent, they don't even need a listing. They do not need a listing. As long as they have buyer, they will be able to find listing in our apps.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I also think that we are actually creating a no boundary business environment. No boundaries. I can be in Johor Bahru. Kenyon, you are in US or you're in Philippines. We can do business.
Yeah.
I can sell a property in KL.
Yeah.
When you are in Philippines, I'm actually in JB. We can do that.
And what a relief that would be for me to know that I could trust you to represent me, and if I'm going to send money across the world for an investment that I've never seen personally, trust is everything. I mean, that's the name of the game. And without that, you have nothing, right? So that's
when there is a transaction being happening, the process of the transaction is actually a digitalized environment. And that we are also building the entire ecosystem for digitalized business environment. Last but not least, which I really want to see that happen, is a no-nonsense environment. What do I call this? Is actually my term, but I call it no-nonsense. Is when I have a property to sell. I just quoting an example. I want to sell my property. I just list inside, put it inside, put up the list as a property for sale. So whenever, I don't even have to get my friends or agents. I do not need to appoint any agents. But I know when somebody contact me, he or she must have somebody is potentially willing to buy and willing to pay the price they want, willing to negotiate what are the terms that he or she wanted to. So I do not have to spend time with one of the specific agent. I do not have to spend time to talk to somebody which he or she may not have potential buyer.
Yeah. It's a lot of time wasters, right? I mean, who has time for that? Right?
Correct. So this actually, we are creating an ecosystem that everybody is somebody. Anybody can be your customer. Anybody can be potentially your agents.
It's perfect and it's powerful and it's passionate and it's perfect and it's so needed. I mean, I think, everybody here listening, and whether it's now or in the future, if you don't understand everything about Proppy, go listen to the other podcasts, listen to the training sessions, and you'll start to grasp what we're talking about here. The power of Proppy, the fact that it's an all-in-one trusted, platform, big data that's going to be an invaluable resource to everybody on every level, whether you're a user, a developer, a serviceman, a professional. It's really exciting. And so knowing that you're on board with us, knowing that you share that passion for Proppy and then property in general, it's really inspiring. It gives me a lot of confidence to talk to you, to hear your opinion about property, and to learn more about your deep knowledge about property in general. And I think we want to hear a lot more from you in the future. We get talking about more in-depth conversations, but we don't have a lot of time left, so I kind of want to bring it back to a personal level and just kind of ask you, like, I know that you're a busy man, you're a family man, you've got your own development projects, and I can see that you have a deep interest and passion for what we're trying to accomplish with Proppy. And I'm just curious on a personal level, like at what level do you want to, what are you planning on bringing to Proppy yourself? I mean, do you see you transitioning and kind of sitting on the board someday and helping oversee this on the back end, or do you want to really be a leader on the front and educating people? Because I see that you could be doing trainings and teaching people about all of this stuff. Where do you see yourself fitting in?
Okay, actually, to be very honest, now because I just started my business, and I'm at the moment I'm unable to spend too much time into Proppy, but I am actually trying to contribute in terms of idea, in terms of assessing our features, and also I actually willing to connect our team to the right people, which I always deal with for those who can help us. This is what I'm willing to do. But of course, in the future, in terms of training, if there are certain area I zoom in terms of I'm willing to hands-on take up an assignment to gen out the reports based on the data we have. I want to make this data usable to different customers, especially those data that we are going to buy from government on the property transaction. I want to make it useful to developers, to agents, to property buyers.
Yeah, that is so important. I think that we are so lucky to have you. Proppy is lucky to have you. I mean, you even just sharing your time here when it's well after your bedtime. I think, I'm full of gratitude. It's really been good to get to know you. And so I want to kind of just bring it back to a personal level, because we're all kind of getting to know you, and I want to ask you a question that we always ask our Proppians, and that is, what is your proudest moment? Like what is what is your deepest passion, and what are your biggest challenges and things that you're working on overcoming right now in your life?
Okay, the proudest moment I have in my life, I would say is becoming a father. I think that moment I feel very proud as a father, and I always inspired myself or imagined myself to be a good father. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my very best to become a good father, give a right education to my children. I think CC also having a very right mindset in terms of educating people, the children. I'm also learning. I need to learn from him on how he educate the children in terms of financial. I'm actually educate the way I thought the best for my children. The most challenging moment I'm facing right now in my entire life, I think, is now. Now is the most challenging time I'm facing. As I mentioned that I started my project, I sold everything I have to fund the project, and it was actually pandemic. And I have buyer, but I'm unfortunately none of my buyer being offered the end financing. Bank doesn't want to fund my buyers. So practically, I'm actually bleeding without incoming. But situation is improving right now. This is the most challenging time actually since last year until now. My construction work at site cannot stop. I need to keep going. Because the moment I stop, the whole market has lost confidence in me.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure the construction keep going, and at the same time, I'm still begging the bank to finance my buyer.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully things will turn around soon. I mean, for everyone, right? I mean, this pandemic has been a tragedy. What's happening in India and these second and third waves. I mean, hopefully the world's going to be vaccinated soon, and we can kind of get back to normal, especially for you in what you're doing. I mean, you know, and for all of us, but you know, I'm really excited for things to get back to normal for Proppy, so I can come out and kind of get more involved and be having these podcast sessions live together in a room, and you know, hopefully, you know, working together. And so, you know,
Yep.
you know, I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you're close with you know, with CC and the inner team, that we're all here for each other, because what Wilson has kind of ingrained into the heart of all of us is that this is a family and that you're not alone. So, you know, I'm glad that you're part of the family. I'm very, very thankful to be here. And so I think with that, I want to really just thank everybody for being here, and a really huge thanks for you, Chen. I think your knowledge is invaluable. Your experience and your passion is deep and infectious. I really look forward to getting to know you on a more personal level, working with you. I think you have so much to bring to the Proppy family and to this team, just like we all have different experiences and different, you know, things that we're bringing to the table. But I think it's been really inspiring to hear from you. The knowledge about real estate. I've learned a lot about, you know, Malaysian real estate and how it's, you know, it differs per region. You know, I mean, even what's happening here in the Philippines versus America versus Malaysia. But I think the takeaway from it all is that big data is vital, and property, you know, Proppy, it can be that focal point of data to bring it all together, and far beyond Malaysia. You know, being able to have that data and those statistics in every region that as Proppy expands in the future, you know, which is why it's so exciting, which is why it's going to be that big data property portal. So,
I'm very exciting as well.
Yeah, it is. It's an exciting time, you know, even in the midst of the pandemic. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to wrap it up and let everybody know to, you know, go and like our podcast on, you know, our social media on YouTube, and follow us, tell your friends. Thank you all for being here. With that, I'm going to wrap it up and let everybody get back to their Sunday evenings and maybe get to bed. So
thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kenyon.